Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? We are back, and so we are back, and so is Bitcoin. Anyways, we're excited to come to you today after missing yesterday's show. We have a lot to talk about. Will this price appreciation continue? If it does, where's our next stop? And what do we expect moving into the best month of the year historically for Bitcoin, being October, also dubbed Uptober? We also have some news on some altcoins. We'll talk about Solana. We're going to talk about Kaspa. We're going to talk maybe a little bit about Toncoin. Gary Gensler and all four of his commissioners were in front of Congress today. And a couple of good clips we want to share with you. We have Magic Internet Money joining us to break down the charts. We have a lot to get into. Let's not waste any time. Let's get running in.
It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto, home of the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency channel, where, unlike other boring, stale, and don't-watch-them channels,
We sing really cool songs to you.
we take fun information and repackage it up in a weird and cringy kind of intro way. Guess who's whack? David.
That's so funny. You know, on Friday, we had our poll. So, what will Bitcoin's price be Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time? Well, we weren't here yesterday, but, you know, we have historical information. So the predictions were as followed. I was at 61.5. Ashley was at 62. Rob was at 66.5. And Rocco was the Uber Bull at 70,000. And well, the winner was Ashley, because at 11 a.m. Pacific time yesterday, Bitcoin's price was $63,294. So Ashley's not here today, but we will congratulate her from afar. I think, obviously with my prediction, I expected Bitcoin to be above 60K. I did not expect it to be above 63. Couple things on BTC I do want to share. So last week and the week prior were very good weeks, and you can see here from CoinGlass, the week prior to last week, we ended the week up 7.7%. Last week, we ended the week up 7.38%. We haven't had consecutive positive weeks, especially if you don't count the 0.2%, since about 10 weeks ago, where we saw 8.7 and then 12.3 consecutive weeks, respectively. And so Bitcoin, it seems, is trending up. Bitcoin price regains strength, is a new rally brewing. And then one more thing I want to share. October historically boosts Bitcoin. Will October deliver again? You think this is the market's trying to front run October? Do you think there's something else going on? Do you think a bottom is in? What's your thoughts here on how Bitcoin's trading?
You know what is depressing as it is, it's just been hanging out in the damn channel. You know what? We went down and tested, where was it earlier this month? 54,000. And so on the high side is 70,000, which is where I thought we would be by the end of the day. I thought we would ping pong up to the top of the Bitcoin's range, because it's been range bound since February, right? We broke above 60K in February. Shortly thereafter, put in a new all-time high. And ever since then, we've just been in this back and forth between, the 70,000 or 68.9 and the 55 range. And, it's a great opportunity to do some swing trades. If this year at all, you would have said, hey, look, you know what, I'm buying Bitcoin at 55 and I'm selling at 65. Be a genius. So how long will we be in this damn channel is the real question, right? When are we going to break out?
The question. Answer the question.
I thought we were going to break out this month.
Well, you thought wrong, so think again.
You know what? There's still more time. There's still time to come. I still think that we do get a bullish back half of September. We got, 1 week left? 1 week left.
1 week to get to 90K.
Yeah, 90K is off the table.
Oh, it is. So you're finally admitting. Okay.
That one, not going to happen. But could we get to 75 perhaps and put a new all-time high by the end of the week? I mean, by the end of the month and week. Perhaps. Obviously, you need a lot of bullish momentum. We would have to see.
Do you think we have it?
Well, I do think that we hit 65, which is the thumbnail here. I do think that we get to 65,000 within the next 48 hours. And so, if it happens today, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if there's just enough momentum yet, but I do think in the next 48 hours, by Thursday, we'll be at 65,000. I feel pretty confident on that.
Do you remember that level I marked out on the Bitcoin chart?
Mm-mm.
64,574.
I remember you talking about it.
Look how perfectly we wicked up there twice. Just like a smidge above, right? This wick, according to Coinbase, was 64,783. But we still haven't reclaimed this. And the way price action is going, it looks like we're kind of in an ascending channel, which those typically break to the downside. But I'm curious to get what Magic sees on the charts. But I do feel a little bit of a shift in not just sentiment. As you can see here on the liquidity flow index, this is our custom indicator powered by Lux Algo. We've been in positive price sentiment for quite a while. And, I've talked about this trading the midline break. Whether it breaks to the upside, you go long. It breaks to the downside, you go short. And if you would have put that position in right when it broke on the very next candle, you would have realized gains of around 13%. Multiply that by however many X leverage you use, you would have made some pretty good money. But sentiment is still up. Money is still flowing in, but we haven't reclaimed that 64,574 level. Very, very key level. If we break that and stay above, the next level we need to break is that 68.2 level, and then we are in a pretty big uptrend. But you flip the trend of this down because we're still in a downtrend, right? We haven't made a higher high, so we're technically still in a downtrend. We made a double bottom here, so we need to flip this level to change course here and go back into an uptrend. But a lot of interesting things have happened. So last week, ETFs bought 6,500 Bitcoin, valued at around $400 million. Fidelity led the way with 138 million. ARK followed with 101.9 million. Grayscale offloaded 28.9 million. Interesting, though, we don't see BlackRock anywhere here. So I didn't look into exactly how much BlackRock brought in, but this is just the headline and the biggest ones. Also, I think this is pretty big news. There was a lot of contention with Coinbase and a lot of speculation that all the ETF trades, they're the custodian of 9 out of 11 ETF funds, that they were trading in paper Bitcoin. And at some point, at a chunk, and I think that's partly the reason why we've been seeing Sundays be so volatile, whether it's to the upside or downside. It seems like they were just holding on to this and then just in one day settling it. Well, BlackRock has amended their filing with the SEC on their S1, stating that they want Coinbase to settle directly on chain within 12 hours. So if today at market close, BlackRock bought $200 million worth of Bitcoin, 12 hours later, that transaction or that amount would have to be settled on chain, not kept in the back, not kept to the side, let it accumulate and do one transaction at a time. What does that mean? That means A, it'll bring more network activity intraday, every day, instead of once a week. It'll boost up the volume. And if there's massive buys, also, you got to look at the other side. If there's massive sells, it could trigger long liquidations. But if there's massive buys, we know the cascading effect of liquidations, whether it's to the upside or to the downside. So you'll get a lot of more fees for the miners. They'll start making more money. Maybe they'll stop selling Bitcoin. So I think a lot of positive can come from this. And I think just the idea of, hey, you bought today, make sure it's settled within 12 hours. Great. I agree. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know why this isn't kind of just the standard, right? I feel like what's the reason or your case for waiting, right? And I understand it's probably easier or more efficient to batch everything and then wait till the end of the week or a couple of days and say, hey, why are we going to keep buying? Why are we going to keep buying every 12 hours instead and then going through the whole process and transaction fee? Like, why not just do this all at once? Take all of the ETF providers, for example, and then do one large transaction. It might be simple for the custodian simple, a little bit more simple for the custodian. But at the end of the day, hey, you know what? You operate in crypto, you're Coinbase. There should be no reason this isn't just standard protocol across the board, right? And especially with the ETF, it's supposed to represent the, hey, I bought a Bitcoin here, and so you in turn go and buy Bitcoin as well.
Do you think this has anything to do with BlackRock customers? Maybe like throughout the week, their trading week is Monday through Friday, correct? And if nothing is settled till Sunday, and it's pretty much just kind of choppy, do you think BlackRock got to a point where people were like, hey, this thing is not really moving?
No, I don't think so. What I think happened is that BlackRock just understands how crypto works and says, hey, look, crypto is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never closes. And so why are we following this same playbook for traditional finance that has hours of operation? Let's just, hey, we buy, the customer buys Bitcoin at this point in time, then let's do our job and buy Bitcoin on the back end, right? And I think that the more one-to-one a transaction is, I buy Bitcoin, you buy Bitcoin, the closer
we all buy
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
The closer it is to the actual like pulling the trigger, then I think that the more accountable it is, the less margin of error, right? Because I mean, what happens if you buy Bitcoin today, and then we see it all the time, right? You buy Bitcoin today, it's at 65,000, and then say 5 hours from now, there's some headline comes out, and then there's forced liquidations, and Bitcoin's down to 61,000, right? Then you have a margin of error. I bought at 65. Now the custodian's buying at 61. Who keeps the profit, right? They took my $65,000. Now they have a $4,000 a margin of error. Are they pocketing that, right? I'm assuming they are. And now what happens on the other end? Who's accountable for that? Hey, I bought at 61, and then you didn't buy it fast enough. Now it's 65.
I buy at 65.
And so I just feel like the margin for error is diminished by purchasing, more in real time. And so I'd like to see it less than 12 hours. I'd like to see it, hey, maybe every 4 hours or every 2 hours.
Or how about when the market's closed?
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously a no-brainer as well. But, give me a reason why, if you can buy every 12 hours, you wouldn't buy every
Well, I'm sure that money has to
2.
settle, right? The BlackRock collects the money from their people, and then they have to send that money to Coinbase, correct?
Yeah.
So how long does that take? I don't think we know the answer to that.
But at the same time, a lot of what happens isn't in real time settlement, right? Money moves from one bank to the other. Sure, there's a processing time, but if you have a master account and say BlackRock's like, hey, you know what, buy this amount of Bitcoin, we have our own personal ledger, but back and forth, you can deduct how much we owe or add it onto the bill or whatever it is.
So you're
almost
saying
like
Coinbase
almost like a tab.
You're saying Coinbase.
I mean, you have to. Even at 12 hours, you think that BlackRock's money
No,
through the fiat system
I don't
arrives?
know.
Yeah.
I don't
So, I mean, maybe it does, but I'm assuming that when BlackRock sends Coinbase money, they're not sending money every 12 hours. And they can't, right? If you send money at 6 p.m., it's not going to work. So, and no matter what, you're going to find that because of an 8-hour work week or 8-hour work day, there's no possibility of being able to, in real time, send Coinbase the fiat currency, have it settle into their bank account. So obviously they're running some kind of tab or, floating them or whatever you want to call it.
There is a...
So why not up the frequency?
There's another big piece of news. I think a lot of people, and myself included, have kind of, spoken out about Coinbase custodying 9 out of the 11 ETFs is not necessarily a good thing. I think there's too big of a risk. But that might change, as yet last week we reported the country's oldest bank, BNY Mellon, was given exemption from the SOB 121 rule, allowing them to custody Bitcoin and crypto. And here we have this headline article from The Block. BNY Mellon moves closer to offering crypto ETF custody services. And so I think we can all agree, you trust Coinbase, okay. Why not trust BNY Mellon, the oldest bank in the United States, who has a master account at the Fed, who's protected by FDIC and by the government? And, to kind of decentralize the custody of these ETFs, crypto, and not just in one company. Because God forbid if something happens to Coinbase, that would not be good. obviously. I do want to give before we bring Magic on, we're about to bring him on here in a second, I do want to give a big thank you to part one of today's channel sponsor, which is Cam's Blue Wire Technology. Part of the reason we weren't here yesterday is we were upgrading our networking equipment, and that is all thanks to Cam's Blue Wire Technology. At their recommendations, we're able to get all the parts we need, and with their customer service, we're on the phone with them for 4 or 5 hours yesterday. We got it all set up.
8 hours.
8 hours.
8 to 10 hours.
Yeah, you look like you're up till 2 in the morning.
Bro.
But anyways, Cam's Blue Wire Tech is your go-to if you operate a business, you want to maximize your networking. So visit BlueWireTech.com, and big thank you to them for sponsoring today's channel. I want to bring Magic on. It's Magic Tuesday. Magic, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you?
We're excellent. Magic, before we get into the charts, I want to share this. So you know the stock to flow chart created by Plan B, I believe, right? And they just put out this this timeline here. This is interesting, and I'm curious to get you guys' take on this, okay? So a post that said, this is just a scenario, right? October, classic pump month, Bitcoin gets to 70K. November, Trump wins the elections, ends the Democrats' war on crypto, Bitcoin goes to 100K. December, massive ETF inflows, Bitcoin to 150K. I think that's my biggest thing of contention. I don't think a lot of money is spent in December from the TradFi side, but could that change? Sure. January, going into 2025, crypto people and companies return to the U.S. This sends Bitcoin to 200K. Power law crew sells. In February, Bitcoin goes down 25%. March, Bitcoin legal tender in Bhutan, Argentina, and Dubai, Bitcoin 300K. He goes on and goes on. And then it's pretty much saying Bitcoin getting to an all-time high of $1 million sometime between July and December, as he quotes, face-melting FOMO kicks in. And then we get into our distribution phase, and ultimately Bitcoin bottoms at $200,000. Magic, what's your I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but what's kind of your reaction to this, and anything, any value to this you're putting?
I think that his model is a model like all others. They're meant to be broken, I think, is the famous saying. So as much as I would like that Bitcoin to go to $1 million in October of 2025 at the 1-to-1 of this cycle, I just don't necessarily see that. I like that he's laid it out. However, if it was as easy as laying out all the events in history that were going to take place for financial freedom, we'd have a lot more rich people and a lot less of what's going on now. So I do think it's cool that he's taking the time and laying that out, and he's still defending his model, which I don't think is as wrong as people think in some cases. I just think they don't operate in standard deviation thoughts, meaning that there's going to be some deviation from every model, and you probably account for that in terms of plus ones, minus ones, things like that. But the thing that wasn't on there that would be of interest to me that wasn't just the Fed pivot. It's China is decreasing rates as well, I think, aren't they?
I'm so happy you said that, Magic. So happy you said that. Look at that.
Yeah, there you go.
But on top of that, Magic, they're pulling a playbook out of the U.S. So they're dropping their reserve rates, right? So when COVID happened, the reserve ratio for the banks in the U.S., I believe it was around 5% prior to COVID, meaning if you have $100 of me and Magic's money that we deposited into your bank, JP Morgan Chase, you'd have to have $5 in your reserves, right? $5 cash on hand. That's the fractional reserve banking. After COVID, they cut that down to zero. So we collectively can put $1 million as a deposit in a JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America, and technically they can lend out 100% of that or invest 100% of that. Without having to keep any of that as a reserve in their bank. And so China is cutting their reserve requirement down as well. Also, apparently funding stock purchases, financing stock purchases. So global liquidity is on the rise. M2 money supply is back on the rise. And the dollar is losing strength. These are all macro factors that play positively for risk on assets, including Bitcoin.
I do want to ask the chat, what are you guys thinking about a $1 million Bitcoin? Is that asinine? Is that probable? If you think that $1 million Bitcoin is on the table for next year, you think that it's going to happen, put a 1 in the chat. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that's foolish, and let's be realistic. Let's get back down to $300,000 all-time high. next year, which has been kind of the call that we've heard more or less. I guess if you had to do average, I think 200,000 to 300,000 would be what people would say. So put 1 in the chat for $1 million Bitcoin next year, 2 in the chat for not quite that high. And then just a quick shout out. Did notice some new people here. If you're new, say hello. We'd love to give you a shout out. We got Paul B, Hedgezo. Here we go. Crypto, Ian, Maxi, Chill Wave, Zach Jones, and Pinchy Babalu. To all of you, hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Robin always with the
Hey,
perfect
Robin.
interruptions. Magic. What are your thoughts on what we were talking about? I almost forgot. We were talking about
No,
China
you're
and
fine.
rates and
You brought up the DXY, which is
Yeah.
actually a pretty big thing for me, because this goes back like almost 2 summers when I gave the top of the DXY, and it still hasn't hit its target yet. So I'm
Can you-
still looking for a drop.
If you're going to pull up a chart, can you maybe explain to people the importance of the DXY in relation to Bitcoin and crypto?
Sure. In plain terms, the DXY is just a basket of currencies, right? And that's what we're measuring the strength of the dollar against. So in terms of Bitcoin, if the dollar is doing quite well and it's strong, more people are putting money into the dollar. That's all it means, is that around the world, people are, I wouldn't say hoarding dollars, but they're buying them and they're putting money in there because they feel that's the safest place for it to be. When that is decreasing in value, they're going to look for other more risk on or other safe havens, quote unquote. So it would be good for things that are more speculative like Bitcoin. So you don't want there to be a risk adverse time and people to be holding on to dollars. So when the Fed is printing money in this instance, it's generally looked at as you're putting more money into circulation. I'm not quite sure that's exactly how it works, but it's kind of loosely the term that's used, meaning that the dollar is going to lose value. So holding on to it doesn't make as much sense. It would make more sense to put it into assets that might appreciate during that time, because they'll require more dollars to be purchased now that there's more in circulation. It's easier to get loans. Businesses take out more loans. They grow faster. And all this encourages more spending from people. So it all kind of ties in together, but that's loosely what you want. So it's an inverse relationship. If you can time them, they're quite good, but it's quite a large cycle chart. I'll show you what I mean on the DXY. But this was a large harmonic pattern that was tracking. It's just a bat pattern. It essentially implies a range-bound scenario as well, just so that anyone's up to speed on it, because you never actually take the high or the low. So you have a high, you have a low, and then generally you want this to be somewhere between the 38.2 and the 50% mark at the B leg, basically showing you that this is going to be your range, right? From here, you're just pulling fibs. It's as simple as doing that. And in this case, you would be looking for this to break one below this monthly SFP, and I'll get rid of all this stuff on the chart so you can see it. And it's pretty simple here, where you've got a monthly swing fail that has occurred and has not been broken in, I don't even know how many months. I don't know what, there we go, get rid of that. How many months it's been that we've been hanging on to this, but it just continues to hammer it. So this has been support for us for some time. And once broken, I'm fully expecting it to come down into this gold pocket in log or linear scale, excuse me. Not only is it there, but you have a nice 12-month level, and I'll show you where those are derived from by just going to the 12-month chart. So I am expecting this to come down lower. In terms of overall targets for something like that, I'm not quite certain that I can use the pattern to, determine that it'll actually come all the way back down to the B leg, which is normally what you would expect. And the reason you expect that is generally when there's consolidation on charts like this, it's going to come back and back test the area that was resistance. And this is where it is, but it has kind of formally done so. So I think that, when the dollar does reach 96.4 to like 98.3, that little area there, you are probably going to see a bounce. But if you don't, it's a quick trip down to like 89, which would be, reminiscent of early, 2021, when Bitcoin was booming back to like 60K, on its way down. So that's what you want to see. But the moment that this does bottom, that's generally going to be the top of the market as well. You're going to start seeing things kind of reverse. They're going to stop taking money out of the market, putting money into the market and pulling things out in terms of the stimulus. But if you were looking at something like this, it's generally a range bound type thing. And you can see that over time, it does actually lose value. The peaks are getting more shallow, which is very indicative of printing a lot more money. The more money they print and circulate, the less valuable it's going to be over time. This isn't a direct correlation to buying power, but it does line up quite nicely in general terms of thinking that holding dollars in a savings account long term is just not a good idea, uh,
Yeah.
to be quite blunt. So it is one of those things where kind of it's a really simple way to view the market. If this is going down, I want to be buying stuff. That's realistically it. And this would have been telling you to buy stuff all the way back in 2022 towards the end of the year, which is pretty spot on for when you should have been starting to buy.
I think the important thing too, Magic, is, maybe not a lot of people in the crypto space look at something like the DXY, but TradFi does. And TradFi now has a vehicle in the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF to where if they do decide to go risk on, here's another product if you want exposure to the most volatile asset class that has seen outside of maybe penny stocks over the last 5-6 years. Magic, I believe this is a level you talked about on Bitcoin also, is that 64.5 level, right?
Yep.
That would take out the last high and essentially reverse the downtrend we've had. This is a chart I'm looking at. We wicked up there, didn't close above. What's our road to 65K look like on Bitcoin? And
Sure.
do you think this trend here, we're up from 58.2. This was on Wednesday of last week. So almost a week ago, we've seen pretty nice gains and we've kind of consolidated sideways around the 63 level. What are you seeing? What are you forecasting?
Sure. The levels are pretty simple. If you guys remember, we talked about the weekly. We said we're going to take away the candlesticks, the wicks, right? We're going to take these away, and there's our trend. And you can see we need to get above this last high here. Okay. And then we have our partial decline here starting to show up on the daily, where you can see you're trying to put in somewhat of a higher low rather than making lower lows consistently. And you'd want to see it make a new higher high. The area that I'm looking at is both a 6-month level, and we've talked about it before, and then also the quarterly open. You said people are stacking shorts in this region. Why would they? And if you recall last week, this was a red candle. So this is your quarter open. It does end in like a week, but it's a good level to have. And so now that we put the wicks back on the chart, you'll also find the 6-month SFP, meaning that we have not closed necessarily on a 6-month time frame above 65,000. We've continuously come above it and then closed back below. So getting back above 65K, that is the level, and it's the level both on the low and the high time frames. Now going into like the lower time frames, that quarterly open that's trying to be defended, and the only reason I bring this up to people and use these opens, and I think this is important for people to maybe start utilizing this method of thinking, is you hear a lot of people talk about liquidations or liquidity sweeps or whatever it may be. I think the term that we use is swing failure pattern. But in reality, the wicks are important. I know we just got rid of them, but the reason they're important and that these levels are defended the way they are is because you have to think that who was transacting in this area and who's been transacting in this area. Same with over here, who's transacting here, and well, who's transacting, to the downside in these wicks, like right here, right? You have to think about who is trapped or in position there. So the opens are often looked at as kind of like markers where you can find good support and resistance for that reason, because there are positions on both sides of those in those wicks. That's generally where a lot of high volume or open interest will come in. One side sometimes gets trapped, which usually actually turns into a really great trading opportunity. But in terms of locally, what we're looking for, I think once you're above 65K, obviously we want to live there. We don't want to just like wick above, take the high and come down. But if you can get above there, you don't want to overlook the range point of control around 67. I think we've talked about that. Yeah. But to me, I look at that as a pretty big level where we're at the point of this, structure where we would start to expect this to start trying to at least make moves higher and trying to break the all-time high. Now, the downside, if you're curious, like what levels could you have marked or should you be aware of? Obviously, the quarterly open is important. If you remember last week, we were talking about the weekly open and the monthly open being the key levels, and that if you had lost the previous week high that was in place at the time, we were going to be expecting a back test of this area. And even just going down to the hourly, that is 100% what we saw. I believe this is Tuesday right here. We were talking about it here. We lost the previous week high, came back, and it gave you a wonderful clean back test of the dual open there between the weekly and monthly, and that was your low before coming up to the quarterly, and then now coming into that level that you're failing to close above. So I think above there, I wouldn't say like, hey, the grass is green 100x long, but it starts to look really indicative of going back in time again. I know we do this a lot, but if we go back over here to the last halving, the big level here was like $9,200 or $9,400, and this thing took forever, and it just really doled people out. But when you looked at the monthly pivots on this thing, they were quite good. I think I changed the color of them recently, and it was this one here. Right here, about 9,400. You can see you've been trading below your previous month average, meaning that price is below the average of price. Now you're holding it as resistance, and as you're breaking out, you're flipping it. So you want to use those in conjunction with the trend. And in this case, we would be doing the same thing, because what is over, if I can get all the way back to it, there's a lot of scrolling. It's hard to believe that much time has passed since that happened.
I know, right?
Really kind of just dates myself there. But the quarterly pivot is right here. It's right where we're butted up against. So you want to see this break above this and continue higher, just like we did before. And it would be after a very long consolidation. You'd be clearing multiple key levels. You've got a range deviation, and this structure would start to inherently look like it does want to look bullish. I've been on the record that I think if we're going to get a new all-time high, I think November is the time frame that I'd be looking for a significant peak. If this does break out, when I say significant peak, I'm not saying that has to be the end of the run. I'm just saying I would be somewhat cautious going into it. But you never know. You could always end up with something like this, where we said that multiple times, where it just did what it wanted to until it decided it's reached its final destination, right? So that's how I see things in terms of losing the quarterly open. It's really not the end of the world. Again, we're going back to where are my averages. And one thing that you have done is in the last 60 days, and I like the 60-day time frame, that average was right around 63.7. You can see that you traded beneath it and you got a good sell-off. You will have the new 60-day that's come in down here at the weekly open, down here at the monthly open. Again, key levels of price. Quarter three is right here. So clearing that is good. And then if you just looked at your current monthly pivot, those are the ones you want to watch. Now, if you're looking for like day trades, guys, if you lose this quarterly open at $62,706, and a good indication of that will be a 4-hour closure, because you actually have failed to really formally close a 4-hour closure beneath here since you've come up here. This has been an SFP level by about $3 right there. If you close below that, you have some really easy targets. And what I mean by that is, if we put on the weekly pivots in this case, and the reason we're doing weekly is because it's low time frame. These hit at about an 80 to 83% hit rate, depending on, your count. If you're going back like 200, or if you have a rolling, average that drops off, but it's usually above 80% that these will get struck within the next session. So sometime between now and Sunday, there's an 80+% chance that it gets hit. That said, it doesn't have to. You can't just like fall in love with that. And then the other one that is here is this is one that I have to hand calculate because they don't have it in the indicator, but I do a bi-weekly. I used to refer to it as a caveman level because it's so easy a caveman can do it. It's literally high, low, close divided by 3.
Wait, who was that? Was that
70,000.
That was Geico, right?
That was Geico. And that was actually one of the things that when I first started TikTok, that I would trade only those levels every 2 weeks, and it blew people's minds. I was like, it's literally so simple. Anyone can do it. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to do it. But, below that, 60,755, you have obvious, issues where you're probably going to back test this weekly and monthly open. And what I would say to people is at that time, you would want to be looking closer to your time-based analysis for the month, right? You'd be looking at your monthly profile, and you'll notice that weekly and bi-weekly pivot come in straddling the value area high of the month. So if price comes down to these, I'm actually looking at these as opportunistically, because if price is going to break up from here, in many cases of breakouts, it will leave some naked points of control, whether it's on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, daily, etc. So they don't necessarily have to be filled, but I would be looking at this as a tradable region. I'd just be probably trading an SFP if I got that, luxury. The ideal trade for that would be something like this, to be honest with you. That's what we want. That's what we're kind of all looking at in the group. If we don't get that and it just does this, well, you can't just sit there and short it. That's a bad idea. but this would be an ideal area for a long for me if you aren't just longing the quarterly open. And if this area is lost, we immediately just turn our head to where is my monthly point of control that is going to close out in about a week. It's in no danger of moving up from here. This node is not going to reach, a level where it takes over the point of control. So I'm counting on this probably being the NPOC for the month. And that allows me to really kind of just operate and say, okay, this is where I want to long. If I don't get that long and it's not a good place to, like price just moves right through it, I know my next area of interest is going to be right here. That's where I'm at. So
awesome.
Below the weekly and monthly open in that caveman pivot, if you live there, like you could wick below there, but if you live there, there are issues that start to arise, and I start looking at this as a failed attempt, and that's not as much fun to talk about.
Yeah, and
I guess
we don't want to live like cavemen, right, guys? So start buying and pump the price. Magic, it's always a pleasure having you on, man. Your in-depth analysis, we love it. I know the community loves it. Guys, if you enjoy Magic, Internet Money, you want some more of that content, join his Discord. It is pinned to the top of the comment section. He joins us every Tuesday. Magic, thank you, my friend. We'll see you next week.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
We're always looking for signs of, is the bull market here? Is the bull market coming? Well, I think this is a pretty good sign here. Rocco, pull him out. I mean, if 11 bulls running wild in a parking lot is not a sign of the bull market is here, I don't know what is. And I want to give a shout out to Mario Nafal for posting this. And then we have this as well. Speaking of funny, Diddy is now in the same unit in a Brooklyn jail as Sam Bankman-Fried. And well, we know Sam Bankman-Fried loves eating cucumbers. There's a picture of him eating a big cucumber, right?
What the hell does that have to do with?
Speaking of cucumbers, look at this headline, Robin. This is from CoinDesk. Candidate Harris unlikely to make full-throated crypto policy before election. I haven't heard that term used before in crypto at all. I rarely hear it being used outside of, the obvious here. But yeah, some funny stuff. And then another headline, which is a little less sexually provocative. Kamala Harris finally breaks her silence on crypto. Couple quotes from Ms. Harris here. We will partner together to invest in America's competitiveness, to invest in America's future. We'll encourage innovative technologies like AI and digital assets while protecting our consumers and investors, said Kamala in a fundraiser in Manhattan to Wall Street. She goes on, we will create a safe business environment with consistent and transparent rules of the road. We will invest in semiconductors, clean energy, and other industries of the future, and we will cut needless bureaucracy. Okay, yeah. It is the first time that Kamala... What?
Sorry.
You all right over there? What do you do?
Okay.
I'm reading it. Okay, hold on.
You've been in crypto for 5 years. You must be rich by now, right? Me. I wasn't gonna show it, but then
you're gonna put this on me. That was you. You didn't mute it. That's not my fault. Anyways, so this is the first time she has made a public comment since she became the Democratic Party's frontrunner. So, you have any thoughts on this, Robin, about her potential full-throated?
Apparently not, but
it's I don't really have much to expand on that full-throated comment, but it's a very politics are very copycat, right? And we've seen that a lot. But it's just interesting, right?
Some stances are just hard to swallow, though.
What is wrong with you today, bro?
Like 3 hours of sleep. So yeah.
So okay, so what's going on here? You have Kamala Harris coming out and saying, "Hey, we're going to be pro crypto." There was a claim or a picture slogan, Harris for crypto. But then she came out with her plan and policies and kind of outlook press release for her candidacy, what she's going to do when she becomes president. pretty long. I think it was like 18 or 19 pages in that thing.
Must have had some crypto stuff in there, right?
No, zero.
Oh, what?
No mention
No
of
way.
crypto
That's
there.
crazy.
And so could have attended the Bitcoin conference in Nashville where RFK and Trump both visited.
And she was invited?
She did not go. Also, there was a Zoom meeting about crypto where, well, lots of other high-level Democrats,
Including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Chuck Schumer was there, yeah. And, she wasn't there either. But yet everyone else was speaking on her behalf. So it's just, you're in office. Do something.
Mm.
It's just very, it's interesting to me that someone that's sitting in the executive office is saying they're going to do all this when they get in the executive office. And yes, she may not be the president right now.
Okay,
But-
Joe
but-
Biden the president right now? No.
Yeah, well, but here's the
Dude's eating ice cream and going to the beach. Okay, which he should be doing at his age, just not.
But
as
here's the
president.
thing, like why are you standing up and trying to have some affirmative action? Why aren't you trying to change things? Why aren't you trying like I understand you're not the one that signs the bills, but you have a very large platform. You can be very outspoken. You can pressure policy changes abroad and here locally.
Well, some
with
argue, Robin,
government.
she has the most important vote in the Senate, the tiebreaker
Yeah.
vote.
And so I understand the vice president might not have a ton of power, behind the pen, but she does have a lot of power and influence in that position, and she's not used it at all for what she's campaigning on, and she's been campaigning on crypto and has completely left that out 100% of her policies. And I think like now, because she's trying to grasp that last like young voter, I know Waltz was coming out and saying like, hey, look at me. He came out with a video yesterday where he was working on a truck and talking about like, changing air filters. And anyways, it seems like they're trying to get this demographic voter that is, a little younger, more in that red state. And, crypto's pretty strong with the demographic of young people, right?
Sorry, young people don't even know how to cook Pop-Tarts. You think they're going to change their air filter?
Yeah. Air filter's not that
I know
complicated.
that's my point. But I know what you're saying. I want to move on from Kamala and go to Tom. And who do I mean by Tom? It is none other than the Majority Whip, Tom Emmer, today. Gary Gensler, Mark Ueda, Caroline Crenshaw, Hester Peirce, and Jaime Lizarraga, the 5 SEC commissioners, right, were in front of Congress, in front of the House Financial Services Oversight Committee. And well, Tom Emmer's turn, and well, he wasted no time. Let's take a listen here to Mr. Emmer.
The SEC broke the law, your attorneys lied to the court, and no one in your leadership here in D.C. has been held accountable. That tracks. Seems like business as usual here in Washington. Okay, switching gears very quickly. It's been recently reported that Vice President Harris has finally said she'd craft clear rules of the road for the digital asset space if she becomes president. Is this your approach too, sir? Or do you think she's rebuking you because she doesn't think you've done a good enough job establishing these clear rules over the last 3 years of her administration?
I think that there's laws in place. If Congress wishes to change them, they'll change them. But we are enforcing the laws, and there are many
Reclaiming
people in
my
this
time.
field
So you don't
that are
think
not
she's
following
rebuking
the
you?
laws.
Reclaiming my time. Well, it's very interesting that you view your performance that way, because we have a litany of court cases, extraordinary confusion in the marketplace, and millions of Americans pining for clarity from you. You've abused the agency's enforcement tools, and you've even baited companies eager to comply with you, only to hit them with enforcement actions. You've retaliated against businesses and people who have come before this committee to talk about the next generation of American finance. And perhaps somehow, worst of all, you've made up the term crypto asset security. This term is nowhere to be found in statute. You made it up. You never provided any interpretive guidance on how crypto asset security might be defined within the walls of your SEC. Yet, you made the broad proclamation that you believe a majority of tokens are crypto asset securities. You did this, and you deliberately used this made-up term as the basis for your entire enforcement crusade over the past 3 years, only for your lawyers to retract it in a footnote to a court just last week. Your inconsistencies on this issue, sir, have set this country back. We could not have had a more historically destructive or lawless chairman of the SEC.
It's straight hot fire, man. And then this is Hester Peirce, as most of you know as Crypto Mom. This is what she said. The different tone and what she's saying, and just take a listen.
I think what's happening is that we're trying to be ambiguous because the legal precision carries with it real implications. And this is why people have been coming to us and saying we need clarity. Is the token itself a security? Or is it part of an investment contract? Is it being sold together with an investment contract? If it is, what is that investment contract and how long does it track along with the token? By using imprecise language, we've been able to sort of suggest that the token itself is a security apart from that investment contract, which has implications for secondary sales. It has implications for who can list it. And I think this is absolutely, we've fallen down on our duty as a regulator not to be precise. And so tucking into a footnote that, yes, we admit that now actually the token itself is not a security, that's something that we should have admitted long ago and then started wrestling with the difficult questions.
Right. So
Yeah, she held nothing back. So interesting. Two sides of the equation. You have anything you want to add here?
Let's get this man out of office, man. Out of his chair position. No, I mean, it's very similar to what we heard before, but nothing has changed, right? We had a congressional meeting with the SEC where Gary Gensler was testifying. He was asked a multitude of questions on why he can't speak on why Ethereum's not a security. We know that it's kind of been greenlit as not a security and essentially a commodity with the ETF or the launch of ETFs. So, but even then, even with that, Gary Gensler still hasn't come out and said, "Hey, this one's a commodity." He just simply says, "Hey, yeah, we're not going to call that one a security anymore, but everything else we will." And so I don't know. We need more of this. We need more accountability. And if you're going to, take the bull by the horns and say, "Hey, look, we're going to regulate crypto," then at that point, like, let's hold them accountable. Let's make sure they're doing it the right way. I'm not saying that the SEC shouldn't regulate crypto. I'm just saying that, like, let's provide the framework. Let's be fair. And what Tom Emmer said is, like, you baited companies. You said, "Hey, Coinbase, come in and register with us." They try to make the appointments. They come in, they talk to them, and then they get hit with a lawsuit on the back end.
They say, "Psych,"
and they just give them 0 to no clarity. Also, I did want to go back and give a little shout out to Crick Cats. He gave $5 super chat earlier. He said, "F the stock to flow model." What's the almanac say? So thank you, Crick Cats, for that as well. Also, Joel Taylor, Travis Michael, DYOFR, Artist Science, Vic Shoes, Trav2432, and Bor Pato. Also thought it was Friday to all of you. Hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Thought was Friday said, "Not sure I can date a chick named Hester." Well, if she gonna make her bags pump, I'm sure you won't have a problem with that. So take a guess who is out of the top 10. What are you doing over there?
What?
Okay,
it's true.
Just in case you guys are wondering, inside the desk here, you have two computers. So as we glance at each other's side, I can see what he's looking at. He can see what I'm looking at. So if you're ever wondering, why does David keep looking over and shaking his head? It's because Rob has got something pulled up that I'm afraid he will show on the show. But
I have no fear.
Yeah.
There's no fear on my side.
Yeah. Out of the top 10, okay, the biggest gain in the last 24, the biggest gain in the last 7 days, who do you think it is? You can't look.
Crypto?
Yes. You can't.
Oh, you're asking me which
one do you think?
Out of top 10? Probably Solana.
Nope. It is Cardano. Cardano is back in the top 10, up 6.5% on the 24-hour, which is the highest among the top 10. And on the 7-day, it is up 14.2%, also the leader in the top 10. ETH has had a nice rally so far over the last 7 days, up 12.62%. Before Cardano, 13.7 billion market cap, 38.2 cents. Feel like things are picking up on ADA. Chart's starting to look a lot better. So Cardano, I don't know. When do you think this thing is really going to like accelerate? Right.
The 40 cents has been kind of tricky. We're getting closer to that. So I'd like to see it get above 40 cents. And then if you get above 40 cents, while Bitcoin is, say, still under like 67, 68, and then at that point, it really puts us in a really nice position as far as price. You get over 40 cents, hang out there, then Bitcoin takes off. That puts Cardano in a perfect position, especially if you start putting some new community members coming in, or perhaps there's some new community tokens. Maybe there's a DEX that catches fire and catches a lot of buzz. I think that would could take it over to that 50, 60, 70 cents. It was at 70 cents earlier this year, so I know that might sound a little weird, but I think that's kind of on the table. And then lastly, did you see this? Here, check it out. A little video. This was Trump. Did you see this?
Yeah. But go ahead.
I'm curious what you think the future of crypto looks like if, God forbid, you don't win the election.
Future of crypto? What does it look
crypto.
like? Well, I think it's a good future. Who knows about anything today? But I think it's a good future. I tell you what, you look at values, you look at what's happening and where it's come and where it came from. I think crypto's got a great future. I think it really does.
What does it look like if, God forbid,
Maybe we'll pay off the $35 trillion in crypto.
Like he didn't answer the question.
Well,
The question was if you don't win, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is the one thing I wanted to reference was that $35 trillion worth of debt. That was Cynthia Lummis's plan. So when she was at Bitcoin Nashville, she brought up the fact that like, hey, we're not going to sell Bitcoin for 20 years. And if you look at price and, the value of Bitcoin for, 20 years forecasted forward could be about $35 trillion, which could pay off the debt if the United States does regularly buy crypto and not sell what they currently hold. So maybe Donald Trump is alluding to the fact that he's going to DCA and buy crypto regularly if elected. What do you think about that? Right?
Yeah, I mean,
He didn't speak on that. That's the thing. Like he said, he was going to do the strategic Bitcoin reserve and not sell.
I'm
Right?
sorry, but Trump is not. Don't expect him to come out and like an RFK methodically lay out how they're going to do it. He's a headline guy.
You don't think that he'll just implement? You don't think that he'll put somebody in charge like RFK or say someone else and say, hey, we need you to operate, we need you to run or be the SAR for crypto adoption. And they're going to, one, keep what they have. He's already said that publicly. But at the same conference, Trump spoke immediately after. Cynthia Lummis, she said, hey, we're going to keep buying $1 million or we're going to try to buy 1 million Bitcoin on top of what they currently have. And they wanted to buy 1 million Bitcoin over the course of 4 or 5 years. And then she said, if they do that, don't sell for 20 years. And then when they sell, it'll pay off the debt. Now, all of a sudden, you got Trump coming out here saying, hey, we can, crypto's good. We can pay off our debt, our $35 trillion worth of debt.
Wouldn't that
It
be-
seems like he took a note from what Cynthia Lummis said.
It'll be interesting if crypto is what saves the U.S. economy.
It could very well be that, right?
People talk about like life as a simulation.
If you had a friend that had a mountain of debt, right? Tons of credit card debt, refinance the house,
Buy
refinance
meme
the car.
coins.
Yeah, they're in massive debt, but they make a lot of money. Let's just say they have
There's tons of people like that.
yeah, exactly. They say and they came to you and they're like, hey, look, I'm underwater. I have so much credit card debt. It's insane. What should I do? I have a good salary. I feel like the best advice that I could give them,
Bankruptcy.
the U.S. isn't going to default in debt.
Oh,
And so what I'm saying is
Oh,
that
you're
with the
referencing
friend
is the
would
government.
would be, hey, look, well, why don't you
I say, hey,
take a
do you
big
still have that
strategy.
money printer in the back? Just go print more. dude.
Yeah, well, take your $500,000 salary or your $1 million salary, set some aside, routinely buy Bitcoin, and then don't sell it 20 years from now. you can pay off everything, right? And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now with politics. So
very interesting. I do want to give a big thank you to our other channel sponsor. Today's show is also brought to you by Radix, the top layer one DeFi in the cryptocurrency space. Going to be bringing their team on the show here soon to give an update. They had a big event in Token 2049. A lot of exciting things are happening on Radix. Transactions are going up. Fees are going up. The network is going up. And so we're proud to have Radix as part of our channel sponsor team. Some altcoin news for you guys. We do have big thank you to Redman, who posted this on his X account. Now on cast.fyi, you can see all the KRC20 tokens. You can see the holder counts, the mint count, when it was deployed, the price, obviously, was there a pre-mint, and the price in Caspa. You see the leader by far, and we talked about this, right? I think we both said it. What do you think is going to be the play? We said Nacho, right? Which is Shy's cat, right? The co-author of the Ghost Egg is Shy, and this is his cat. And, well, it's at a $57 million market cap. So pretty impressive there. And so if you're in the Caspa community and you want to take a look at, as far as I know, there's no implementation with like Dex Screener or Dex Tools. And so this is a great place to start. You can see, get all the information you want. You can get a contract address in here as well. You can trade it and you can mint it as well if it's 100% is minted. But you see all the new ones that are up here as well. And so big shout out to the Caspa community. Also, we have this. Internet Computer has generated more fees than Optimism, Arbitrum, Avalanche, and Polygon in the last 30 days. And to no one's surprise, let's take a look at where ICP is trading at right now. Over $9, up 6% on the 1 day, up 16% on the 7 day. We saw this. We saw ICP run up when Bob.fun went live. And all those cycle burn. We did a show with Kyle Langham from Dfinity, talked about how that directly affects the price as the ICP token becomes deflationary. And so this is great, man. And then we're hearing of partnerships with Google, and there was one other one. We're going to do an ICP video this week. We'll cover that more in detail, but very interesting. And so these are projects. You want to take a look at, well, why is the price moving? Is it solely speculative, or is there something actually happening? And with ICP, things are actually happening. So big shout out to them. And then Sui, this has garnered a lot of attention on Crypto X and across the crypto industry. Sui flipped Polygon in total value locked. I believe their number is 7. The next target for them to surpass would be Avalanche, which they're not too far off. And so Sui, a lot of people are saying this is the Solana play of last cycle. A lot of exciting things, a lot of interest from venture capital. It's got the sentiment behind it. And as far as I know, the tech is pretty good. Tokenomics are not the greatest. A lot of inflation, especially in 2025. So beware of that, of the token unlocks. But Sui, is Sui a good play for this cycle?
I haven't really looked into Sui too much outside of my initial research. I haven't looked into it lately, but I don't know. Could be.
That'll do it for the show today. Sorry about yesterday. We had a lot of issues we worked through, but we're back. We'll be back tomorrow. Next week, we have big guests coming on next week. And yeah, anything else? That's it. Rocco. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate all of you. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe, ping your notification bell. Follow us on X at Sin City Crypto 1. That is where we post all of our updates. Until tomorrow, my friends, we love you. Peace.
Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy a dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming, hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.